was a beautiful morning, and the breeze made the petals dance in the wind. Nayemero, a brown cat, just woke up from his peaceful sleep as a petal that came with the wind landed on its head. He woke up and yawned, hoping to get more sleep as he saw his favorite person coming towards him. He acted so obediently as he was given the full authority of the house until the owner returned. She promises to bring Nayemero a gift when she returns. Dressed professionally, Fuyutsuki, the owner of Nayemero, leaves the apartment to catch the bus. On her way, she thinks about her memories at school, how her friends treated her, saying she was so calm and not being moved by anything at all. She gets down of the subway and walks to her company as it is the day of company initiation. It was an extraordinary day indeed. As she passed cherry blossom trees, she felt cold. The wind was exceptionally cold, as if it were winter. Then she noted snowflakes. As the flake was melting in her hands, she saw him. The white-haired, point-faced guy who was stuck in ice. She was amazed, and she asked what happened to him. He says it was his company initiation day, and he was so nervous that he got stuck on ice. He tried calming himself down by looking at cherry blossoms falling in the wind. Fuyutsuki grabs a flask of tea from a bag. It was hot, and she poured it into his frozen feet, hoping that the ice would melt. Then she asks if he wants to have tea with her. As they are having tea, the ice that his feet are stuck into breaks. Having ice-freezing feet in spring was abnormal, but Fuyutsuki didn't show that she cared. Then suddenly, he says that he is a descendant of the snow woman spirit, which surprised Fuyutsuki. That was why he had ice frozen around his feet. Others frequently ask him if he likes only winter, and he says when he meets someone special, he starts to enjoy spring too. Then he departs from Fuyutsuki. On her way to work, Fuyutsuki remembers how her friends talked about her steady composure and wondered if she had someone she liked. Finally, she makes it to work at Kanandori. On his way to work, the descendant of the snow woman spirit was also thinking of Fuyutsuki. He has never met someone like that before. When he enters the office, he is surprised to see Fuyutsuki in the same office. Then, as she looked at her, he got a bit nervous, and snow started to fall. He introduced himself as Himuru. At the same time, another girl enters the office. Seeing the snow, the new girl came up with 2 ears and a tail and said she was a descendant of a fox named Kamori. Fuyutsuki felt a bit nervous, thinking if she was the only human there. With Kamari came another boy. Fuyutsuki introduced herself and said she was a human descendant, which made everyone laugh. The other boy, Sejima, also presented himself as a descendant of humans. They were bound to be good friends. At the end of the day, Fuyutsuki goes home with snacks for Nayemero as promised. She dreamily tells her cat that life is going to be different. At the same time, Himuro was thinking about work. He was nervous and looking forward to returning to work to see Fuyutsuki. The next day, Fuyutsuki notices that Himuro has a photo of flowers near his PC. She asks if he likes flowers, and he explains how much he likes flowers, but the moment he touches them, all the flowers freeze, so he could never touch them. The next day, Fuyutsuki comes up with a bag of straws. She had searched for a way for Himuro to touch flowers and comes up with straws that will help him to touch flowers without freezing them. Himuro was surprised to see her concern, and at the same time, he was very happy that Fuyutsuki cared for him. Himuro likes cats a lot, but as his touch could freeze anything, he could not cuddle cats too. When Fuyutsuki hears this, she shows him Nayemero, and Himuro leaves her cat when he sees his cute photos. Then Fuyutsuki decides to give Himuro the whiskers Nayemero shed in her bed. Fuyutsuki says it is considered a good luck charm, but at the same time, she feels embarrassed to give a boy good luck and a protected charm. Himuro is over the moon to be treated so special by Fuyutsuki. The next day, he decides to give Fuyutsuki a gift. She was surprised to see a dessert, a chocolate orange pistachio inside. It was an expensive dessert. When Fuyutsuki asks how he found it, he says he got it by chance. But in reality, he had been searching for it for a week as he remembered her mentioning that she wanted to taste that dessert. As days pass, their coworkers become aware that Himuro and Fuyutsuki are being nice to each other. Himuro enjoyed being treated special by Fuyutsuki. One day, Himuro loses all the data he had compiled being deleted, and his chief asks him to redo it from the beginning. So he builds up an icy glue around him and sets to work. It would be a long day, and as everyone left work, even Fuyutsuki. As Himuro was busy entering data, he felt something cold on his face. Fuyutsuki had returned with a can of soft drink to help him work overnight. He was so delighted to be treated by Fuyutsuki that way. It gave him more energy to finish the task on time. Sejima was not feeling one day when Himuro noted that he was having a cold. Himuro wanted to help him, and he made a handmade cold compress for his friend. Himuro asks him to take a leave and go home, but Sejima has a lot of work to be done. Himuro decides to help his friend, grabs his flies, and starts working on them. Fuyutsuki, who was at the door, saw how kind Himuro was. She was very happy and proud of him. A month had passed so fast that Himuro had a list of souvenirs from Fuyutsuki. He was starting from straws and cat whiskers to soda cans. He was so happy that he decided to work in the company. In the same way, Fuyutsuki was also looking back and thinking of how a month went so fast as she was praying that everything would be exact. At a meeting after 1 month of their arrival, the chief announces that the company is organizing a trip to celebrate the arrival of newcomers. Everyone was cheering when the chief said the trip would be to Okinawa. Only one person in the audience was depressed and sad. Himuro did not want to go to Okinawa. He had a secret that he could not tell anyone. He knew that if he went there, something terrible would occur. As everyone was cheering, Himuro was in a gloomy mood. In the meantime, Kamori, the fox girl, was dancing joyfully to hear that they would be going to Okinawa. Everyone was excited about the trip to Okinawa. It was a 4-day trip with a program on training in the morning, but evenings were supposed to be free. Kamori was the most excited out of all. As they happily celebrated, they felt cold and snowflakes danced in the air. Fuyutsuki knew something was wrong with Himuro, so she approached him. Even by then, his legs were stuck in ice. He was sitting on the staircase. Fuyutsuki sits beside him and asks why he is not as excited as them. She reassured me that it would not be boiling at that time of the year in Okinawa. He says it is all psychological. He fears that he will summon a winter storm after seeing the ocean and the sunny resorts there. He says the waves' sound will make him go out of control and cause a disaster. Hearing this, Fuyutsuki goes home and tries to find a way to ensure that Himuro joins the trip. She finally comes up with a solution. The next day, she gives Himuro a surf drum. It's a circular ornament filled with beams and shells. When it is turned to the sides, it produces the sound of the waves. Fuyutsuki asks him to get himself acclimatized to the sound of the waves so that by the time they reach Okinawa, he can face the sound of the locks without causing any change. Himuro practices tolerating the sound of the sea at home and even at work. In the beginning, it was a difficult task, and he always ended up causing it to snow. But the more he practiced, the better he got. By the day of the trip, he was successful in having complete control over himself. In a bus, they traveled to their destination. Okinawa is a beautiful city with a lot of sunshine and beautiful beaches. All of them were excited to finish the day's work, hit the beach, and do some shopping too. They reached their destination by bus, and everybody checked into the hotel. After the day's program, it was already the evening, but the sun was shining as if it was noon. Okinawa had longer daytime in that period of the year. Kamori was super excited to go to the beach. Himuro and Fuyutsuki sat under the enormous umbrellas, sipping cool drinks while Kamori and Sejima went to bathe. Himuro didn't escape the umbrella as the sun's rays could melt him. It was only then that Fuyutsuki learned about that. She was looking forward to this trip and even made a tour guide by herself. She gave it to Himuro, and he was amazed by how much effort she had put into it to develop such a great tour guide. He thought that Fuyutsuki was an exciting person. Then she shows him a photo she got from her pet sitter. It was an adorable photo of Nayemero hugging a fish. Himuro loves that photo the instant he sees it. At the same time, he enjoys how Fuyutsuki talks in a Kansai accent. It made him so excited that he almost created a snowstorm. He decides to stay calm and composed and to be quiet. He decided to let time take things at its phase. Then, while visiting Okinawa City at night, he sees a shish, a lion. He planned to give Fuyutsuki with a lion, and finally, he bought red and yellow. The moment he bends down to grab it, another hand appears. Then he looks up to see her eyes looking at him. He lets her take that lion and she selects a blue and white lion for him. He was so happy that he could make her happy. This happiness caused a mild snow shower, but it didn't turn into a storm. Walking under the snowflakes, Fuyutsuki appreciates Himuro for his excellent control over himself. The next day, Himuro wakes up to the weather report, which states that it will be the hottest day in Okinawa for the summer. He gets scared, dashes out of the room, and goes looking for a place with air conditioning. He inquired from the hotel staff of the nearest convenience store was 2 kilometers away. He finally finds a place to hide. As the temperature was rising, he started to shrink. In the meantime, Fuyutsuki was in the dining hall. She kept looking for Himuro, but she failed to find him. Then she comes across Sejima, who tells her that Himuro got nervous after listening to the weather report, and he ran away from the room. Suddenly, Fuyutsuki remembers that Himuro could melt in hot weather. She tries to find him. She goes looking for him from place to place in their hotel. And finally, by the time she sees him, he has shrunken to the size of a child. She is terrified, and she goes looking for help. She grabs a popsicle and brings it to Himuro to keep him calm. As Himuro starts to eat it, Fuyutsuki pats Himoru's head. She wishes him to come back to standard size. Suddenly, everything changed back to normal, and the actual size of Himuro stood before her. That was a relief to Fuyutsuki, but at the same time, they were wondering what made him change back to normal. Was it the popsicle or Fuyutsuki's touch? The rest of the day went by as usual, and the dinner party was a great success, with everyone singing, dancing, and drinking. At the end of the party, Fuyutsuki wants to take a detour, but she doesn't say why. Her three friends agreed and saw the sky light up on the way. It was a fireworks display. They were amazed at its beauty. All of them captured the magical moments in the sky. Looking at the fireworks, Himuro promises to return to the fireworks festival with Fuyutsuki next year. They all took photos together and left for the hotel. After the trip to Okinawa, everyone returned to work joyfully. The chief comes up with the news that the newcomers will be assigned to permanent projects the next day. Fuyutsuki and Himuro were working on temporary assignments, and finally, they were getting set to permanent ones. This news startles Himuro. He was happily working side by side with Fuyutsuki, but not his happiness was under threat. He feels nervous, thinking about possibly losing the chance to work with her. He grabs the whiskers of Nayemero gifted to him by Fuyutsuki, holds them up in the air, and prays to God. He begs to be in the same department as Fuyutsuki. After washing, Fuyutsuki comes out wiping her hair. She sees Nayemero sleeping comfortably on the couch. It reminds her of Himuro. She grabs her phone and looks at the wallpaper. It was the photo she had taken at the fireworks festival. She looks at it with tears in her eyes. She remembers that she had never been so connected to people like this. She hopes that she will be in the same department as the others. As Himuro was getting nervous, he received an email stating his assignment. He scrolls down to see Kamari Sejima and his name, and he is scared he has lost her. Then he scrolls down a bit more and finally sees she is also on his team. He felt so relieved. He thanks the Whiskers for making his wish come true. Then the next day, they all meet up at the new department. To Himoru's relief, Fuyutsuki comes to sit next to him. He thinks that he could not have asked for a better neighbor. He was so happy that he caused a minor snowstorm, and it was after Sejima reminded him that he got hold of himself. Looking back, Himoru realizes that Fuyutsuki has done so much for him, and it is high time that he pays back to her. He keeps searching for a way to repay her. He decides to take her out for dinner, and to make it perfect, he wants to take her to a place with her favorite food. He tries to figure it out without letting her know. He listens to her conversations with Himuro, but Fuyutsuki keeps saying that she likes everything, which upsides Himuro in trouble. Fuyutsuki says she likes everything in Japanese, Thai, Korean, whatever the food type mentioned. Himuro wanted to get close to Fuyutsuki, but he was not ready to give up. As Fuyutsuki comes to work the next day, she sees Himuro frozen in ice. As soon as she talks, the ice breaks and Himuro says he is anxious, making him freeze. Because he is nervous, Fuyutsuki gives him a foot massage. Ultimately, Himuro plucks up the courage and asks her to go out for dinner that night. Fuyutsuki agrees, and as soon as Himuro leaves, she wonders if he has just asked her for a dinner date. Himuro calls a restaurant and reserves a table. Fuyutsuki gets ready after work and attends the dinner with Himuro. She's amazed to see the place Himuro has preserved. She enjoys the feast. Both of them were too shy to start a conversation, so Fuyutsuki's phone rang, and she had to go and answer the call as it was from work. As she leaves, a waiter comes and talks to Himuro. He asks if they are on a date. Himuro says they were on a date, and it had been the best day of his life. As soon as he utters these words, Fuyutsuki appears after finishing her call. Himuro realizes that she overheard the conversation and he feels embarrassed. He falls off his chair, and that day, Fuyutsuki learns that Himuro can melt when he is sorry to. The next day, Himuro asks Fuyutsuki about her feelings for Himuro. As she started to speak, both Himuro and Sejima were behind the door next to the girls. Fuyutsuki finally decides to speak her heart out. She says that she doesn't feel that close to Himuro. She doesn't even have his number, doesn't know what he does on off days, and wishes to make snowmen and go sledding with Himuro. That was all Himuro had also wanted to do with Fuyutsuki. As Sejima had also heard the conversation, he was surprised they hadn't even exchanged contact details. Fuyutsuki and Himuro had introverted personalities, and they were unaware of how to build a foundation for a long-lasting relationship, yet they both wanted to keep trying. On the same day, on the way home, as the sun was sinking and birds were heading home, Himuro asked Fuyutsuki to give her contact details. Fuyutsuki finds it a bit weird, but still, she is pleased that he asked for it. It did indicate that he wanted to open up and get close. Himuro finds it charming that Fuyutsuki has her details under Nayemero's name and a photo. She offers to change it, but Himuro says it is okay. Then she promises to send a picture of Nayemero when she gets home. She sends a photo of her holding Nayemero, and Himuro is overjoyed to see that. He gets excited and wants to save it, but his phone freezes in his hand as he is excited. He was happy that he was delighted to see that she had started to share small details of her life with him. This made him feel that slowly he was making a better connection with her. The next morning, Fuyutsuki sends another message saying that they should have a productive day. He was getting up from sleep, and suddenly, he jumped out of bed excitedly. Himuro was very happy and excited to get to work. They worked continuously until noon, and Himuro asked for time. Then Fuyutsuki takes her phone to check the time. Then Himuro noticed she had their photo taken at the fireworks festival. He asked about it, and she apologized for not getting his consent before using it as wallpaper. He says not to worry and that it is all right for her to use that photo as wallpaper. He got up while blushing with happiness. As he gets up and leaves, Fuyutsuki checks her lock screen. It is the photo she took when Himuro had melted. His childlike version. She adored that version of him, his Kid Luke version. So she had put it as her lock screen. Fuyutsuki tells herself that she can never let him see that. Work keeps getting more exciting as they get a new colleague. It was break time and Komori, Sejima, and Himuro were enjoying their time together. Then the door opens and someone enters the room. Neither Komori nor Sejima had seen him before. He looks like a fun-loving person, introducing himself joyfully. He worked in the sales department and recently changed to their department. He introduces himself as Katori, and to everyone's delight, he says he is a descendant of a phoenix. He had been an old friend of Himuru, interestingly. Then Komori asks why he came there as he mentioned he had been an artist too. He skips, giving a proper answer. Instead, he starts showing off his artwork. A flower with multicolored petals, he names it as Joy. While Komori and Sejima take a look at that, Himuro shows no interest at all. Then he shows another photo. A box with a light on it is named the Light of Morning. Still, Himuro appears unmoved. As the discussion continues, the door suddenly opens, and a lady appears. She asks Katori what he is doing there instead of working. Katori says he will be back soon, but if she would like to join for coffee with them. She angrily refuses and walks away. That was of Tonashi, Katori's superior. She barks at him, asking him to join her as soon as possible to do rounds, and leaves the room, closing the door angrily with a thud. As Himuro leaves, he meets Fuyutsuki. She drops her bundle of papers and is startled by the appearance of Himuro. He bends down to help her pick up the scattered pieces. In between the documents, he sees a movie flyer. It was a flyer about a children's movie. The title was George the Kitten. Fuyutsuki feels embarrassed, and she grabs the flyer from Himuro and tries to hide it. But Himuro keeps asking about it. Then she says that she enjoyed the first part of the film and wishes to watch it surrounded by parents and kids. Out of nowhere, she decides to take a chance and asks if Himuro would like to join her. Himuro agreed, and as he had not watched the first movie, he had to watch it to catch up with the new film. Himuro wanted to make her happy in every possible way, so he decides to watch the first movie by himself at home. He enjoyed it and texts Fuyutsuki, saying he watched the first movie. Coincidentally, Fuyutsuki had also been watching the same film. Himuro feels overjoyed that both of them are doing the same thing simultaneously. Then Fuyutsuki asks if it is okay to reserve the seats, and she asks if she has any preferences. He says any place will be good to go for him. Then she asks if he will be okay with seats side by side. Himuro was excited. He would watch a movie sitting next to her. He says that he will be pleased about that, and she finally makes the reservation for both of them. While going to sleep, Himuro tries to figure out what they should do after the movie. It will be okay to ask her to go for a dinner out. Then he remembers that the last time was too embarrassing and melted. So, to be safe, he decided to drop that idea. The next day, Fuyutsuki comes clad in a yellow dress and a white overcoat. When she reached the cinema, Himuro was already there and she asked him if she was late. He says she is not, and he accompanies her to the hall. They sit side by side to watch the movie. Sejima also attends to see a different movie called Rice. Unfortunately, he is alone and sees how happy Himuro and Fuyutsuki are together and wishes he had someone to watch the film with. The seat next to him was empty. He wondered who would come. Then suddenly, someone excuses and sits next to him. It was Katori, the descendant of the phoenix with his shining eyes. He says that the only seat available by the time he booked was that seat, and coincidentally, he ended up sitting next to Sejima. As the movie starts, Sejima thinks it is weird to watch that with his coworker, who just started working with them. As the movie unfolds, Fuyutsuki enjoys every bit of it, and Himuro keeps watching her beautiful face and thinking how lovely she is. Towards the end of the film, Fuyutsuki starts to cry because of the emotional scenes in the movie. As her tears trickled down her cheeks, Himuro wanted to wipe them off, but he did not have a tissue or a handkerchief. But after a reasonable search, he finds a handkerchief in his pocket. He gave it to Fuyutsuki, and he was happy he could help her. After the movie, both come out, and Himuro asks what they should do. Fuyutsuki suggests going to a cafe. On their way, Fuyutsuki asks what happens when Himuro cries because when he is happy he makes snowmen, and she wonders what happens to his tears. He doesn't answer that. He keeps silent. The next day, Fuyutsuki had to work overtime, and so did Himuro. He hated overtime, but when he realized he got to be alone with Fuyutsuki, he was overwhelmed with joy. Both of them were waiting for phone calls related to work. Himuro decides to brew some coffee for both of them. He was super excited and ended up freezing the coffee he brewed. Fuyutsuki tells him that she had to turn down a dinner invitation from Komari because of having to work overtime. In the meantime, Komari Sejima is in the street, and Komari says she invited someone else, too. In minutes, Katori and Otonashi turn up at the site. They go to a restaurant, and Komari asks about the movie they had watched together on the off day. Komari sends photos to Fuyutsuki, and she feels sad that she could not make it. Himuro thinks that he has to do something to cheer her up. In between the talks, Sejima mentions that he saw Himuro and Fuyutsuki together, and Kamari was so happy to hear that they went on a movie date. As Himuro thinks of how to cheer up Fuyutsuki, she comes up with a word chain game idea. It was so much fun to play that with her, and as a part of the words, when Fuyutsuki says the word love, Himuro blushes. In the restaurant, the four friends start to talk about other movies and what possible movie would fit Himuro. They think it is a horror movie that matches him. Himuro laughs at the thought of this. In the middle of the word game, Fuyutsuki gets the call she was waiting for. The word game was so much fun, and Himuro did not want it to end, and he fears that she will be going home as now her work is done. After finishing the phone call, she sadly told Himuro that her overtime was extended and she couldn't go home yet. Himuro is happy to hear that, but he doesn't show it. She asks if he has the habit of doodling on a paper as he is on a phone call. He says he does, and then they decide to ask questions about each other while doodling. As the dinner is going on, Kamori gets a message from Fuyutsuki that she's changed her icon and contact details to a doodle. At the same time, Katori also receives a letter from Himuro. He says that he changed his icon to a portrait drawn by Fuyutsuki, and she also changed her one with a doodle he had drawn for her. Katori smiles, thinking there is more energy in Himuro than they had seen. Katori stands up and congratulates Himuro, and everyone asks for the reason. He says that Himuro is making significant progress with Fuyutsuki, and wishes them the best of luck. While they were busy talking, Fuyutsuki and Himuro wondered why none of them replied to the photos they had sent. At the same time, the phone calls they were waiting for arrive, and finally, their overtime is done. Then Himuro asks if Fuyutsuki can grab a late dinner with him, and she agrees. She asks him to meet her on the ground floor, and she will hold her stuff and come. Their friends were super excited and kept talking about the new development, and Komari is the fastest to even think about engagement. The next day, Kamari finds Fuyutsuki and Himuro dining together at the break. She was delighted to see them both after knowing things were finally picking up for them. She comes in with a bowl of noodles. She says that she is in a hurry to get back to work. Then, looking at her bowl of noodles, Himuro asks if that is her favorite type. She says she prefers the fried tofu taste as she is a descendant of a fox spirit. As she says that, her ears and tail pop up. They are wagging fast. At the same time, Sejima appears and he teases her, saying that her skirt is flapping with the tail. This embarrasses Kamari, and she blushes and angrily asks him why he must look. Then she tells herself that this happens every time she lets her guard down. After hearing her, Sejima suggests that she should keep the tail and ears out anyway, and this makes her go wild with anger, asking if he wants to always look at her like that. He says she looks cute like that, but she fires back, saying he doesn't know how to make a girl happy. That night, Himuro was looking at the card to help him get George the kitten plates for Fuyutsuki. He had to get at least 2 points daily to get the dishes for her. He decides not to rush, just to let it happen at the normal phase. At the same time, he is determined to get them for her. Fuyutsuki also wakes up in the morning, and while having breakfast, she sees the commercial saying that to win the set of plates, she needs to collect the number stickers and send them to receive the price. Meanwhile, Kamori needs help getting ready to work as she has no matching clothes. Her laundry still needed to be dried up, then she messed up her lipstick, and the subway was jammed. She finally makes it out of the 2 train, exhausted. Fuyutsuki meets Himuro at the road crossing, and he wishes her good morning. They both head to work happily. Then Kanri comes to work, and Fuyutsuki notes that she looks tired already, though it is morning. Fuyutsuki gives her a packet of glucose. She says it will help her to get her energy back. Inside the box was a small bear, but that was not Komori's favorite one. She was sad about it. As she complained, Sejima entered the room and everyone greeted him. Then he sees the little toy Komori was holding, and suddenly he goes back into memory lane. He says it reminds him of his childhood. He used to have a whole collection of those toys. Hearing this, Komori also decides to have her collection. Each day, as she comes to work, she finds a little toy lying on her table. There were fox toys, too, and she was pleased. She wonders who does that. She suspects it is Fuyutsuki, but she is not eating that same pack of glucose. Then she asks if it was Himuru, but he concentrated on the kitten plate set. But the toys didn't stop coming. She had a new toy every morning. One day, Fuyutsuki notices her toys and asks how she managed to have such an extensive collection, and Komori says that she has help from a secret helper. She decides to call the private helper Gluco Fairy. While they were talking, Fuyutsuki noticed Himoru holding the same card as she had, which mentioned the points for the kitten plate set. Himoru had messed up the dates, and he was scared that he would be unable to get the facts by the deadline. Then finally, Komori gets the chick toy, and her collection is completed. She is happy that it is finally done, and at the same time, she is sad that the Gluco Fairy will not be coming again. As she was worrying, the dining hall door opened, and Sejim entered. He sees that she already has the chick. He says then she will not be needing the chick toy he brought. At that moment, Komori realizes that the Gluco Fairy is no other than Sejima. Komori asks why he is being friendly and concerned about collecting them for her. Then he says it was out of love, and these words bring back her fox form, and she blushes. Himoru is nervous that he cannot finish collecting the sticker coins to get the kitten plate set on time. As he keeps worrying, Fuyutsuki comes up with her card, saying that they will stand a chance if both their stickers are put together. Himoru is delighted. He says that Fuyutsuki is the kitten fairy. Then, with both sticker coins collected, Himoru manages to get hold of the plate set. He presents it to Fuyutsuki, and she finds it cool. He gives her one of her most desired gifts. As they appreciate the leaves, Katori comes into the room. She is asking for help from both of them. He says he is in serious trouble as Otonashi has started to ignore him. He had been giving her coffee, reminding her of her breaks, and looking after her well because she had been nice to her. Then he had asked her for permission to be with her for the rest of his life. She was surprised, and since then, she had been ignoring her. This has made Katori upset. Fuyutsuki and Himoru think that Katori is acting like a baby bird, and to make things worse, Katori starts to cry. Himoru and Fuyutsuki remind him that he is a phoenix, and he has to get back. At the mention of that, Katori gets back on his feet with his wings. He declares that he loves Otonashi and will fight to win her heart. At this moment, Otonashi enters the room, and she gets even more offended. She threatens him to return to work, but he says it is his lunch break. Then she tells him she will do rounds and asks him not to come after her and to stay there. Katori explains how it all started. It was when he was working in a coffee shop. The shop had little business, but only one customer was a regular, Otonashi. Looking at her speed and friendly gestures, Katori had fallen for her since then. With her as inspiration, Katori had joined the same company. At first, his work was below average, and Otonashi immensely helped him. That had made him love her even more. When he had made mistakes, Otonashi also apologized to the clients on his behalf. Then, one day, one of their significant investors decided to cut ties with them, and they faced a crisis. Otonashi was determined to find new clients and get the profits up again. Katori was also selected to help her. Together, they found new clients, and in a few months, their numbers were doing even better than previous. After the presentation on the progress, the chief thanks Katori, but he says it was all Otonashi who was behind it. She was not there at the meeting. Katori finds her in the doorway crying. He goes to comfort her. After listening to this, both Fuyutsuki and Himoru were so moved. They remind him not to be overactive and act normal. At this, he works as if Fuyutsuki is Otonashi, heads on his knees, and confesses that he is eternally in love with her. Fuyutsuki and Himoru think it is overacting, yet Katori thinks eternal is the best word to confess his love. Then he happily goes away. Himoru says he was always a pain in the neck at school. Then Fuyutsuki says what if she had known Himoru since their school days? That will be so much fun. Yet again, she comes to reality that it is impossible now. So she says that she is happy that she got to spend this time with Himoru. It is just another day at work, and Fuyutsuki finally decides to ask Himoru why he doesn't look at her. She wonders if he's trying to avoid eye contact. Himoru says he has had difficulty making eye contact for a long time. Awed, he apologizes for making Fuyutsuki uncomfortable. Komari pops out from behind and comes up with a great suggestion. Since Himoru and Fuyutsuki sit next to each other, she asks Fuyutsuki to help Himoru train himself to make eye contact with people. Fuyutsuki agrees at once. Then she turns to Himoru and asks him to look at the bridge of her nose. Himoru agrees, but as soon as it starts, he blushes and it seems more uncomfortable than looking at her in the eyes. It only lasts a few minutes when Fuyutsuki breaks the gaze, saying she is lost. Himoru also gets up from his seat and leaves. Out of the room, he closes the door behind them and screams in silence, thinking how cute she is. He even produces cute snowmen. As he was happy, his chief turned up in front of him. He gives him theme park tickets and asks if he likes going there. Himoru finds it unappealing. He and the chief are holding balloons and going to a theme park. He finds it difficult to answer. Chief laughs at him and says he got it from a client and doesn't want to go, so he gave them to Himoru, who seemed to like cute things. He even makes cute snowmen. At this moment, Fuyutsuki enters the doorway. Chief asks if she wants to go there. She says she had never been to that theme park and would love to go. Then she asks if Himoru can join her. Suddenly, it sounded like a date. Himoru is so thankful to the chief and he thinks the head is close to being like Buddha, and he has been enlightened. Himoru believes that he can even worship the chief from that moment on. Himoru wanted to make the best out of it, so he gets down some brochures on the theme park and tries to figure out the most exciting things to do. Fuyutsuki is so happy that she got the chance to go there. She even explains to Nayemero about the new development. The next day, Komari sees that Himuro is reading the theme park brochure, and she gets overexcited and starts giving opinions. She even asks which cat is Fuyutsuki's favorite, but Himuro does not know. Apparently, after all her thoughts, he finds it too tiring to read and plan. Komari did not give up. She goes behind Himoru, saying all the fun facts about the park. When Fuyutsuki hears this, she feels that Komari is very interested in going to the park, and she asks if she would like to have her ticket. Behind Komari, Himoru was fuming with anger. Komari realizes that she is making Himoru angry by ruining his date. She flatly refuses Fuyutsuki's offer. Then Fuyutsuki said the three of them should go, and again, Himoru was fuming angrily. Komari did not want that too, so she runs to Sejima and asks if he can join too, gesturing at Himoru. Finally, he agrees, and it becomes a double date. So the four of them go to the theme park. Komari is delighted and says that she will be their official tour guide. She happily starts giving them the details. In the middle, Fuyutsuki notices a little girl looking scared, and Fuyutsuki realizes that the girl could be lost. She walks to her and asks her if she is lost. The girl becomes friends with Fuyutsuki. Himoru notices this and steps to Fuyutsuki. He feels proud of her kindness and decides to go with her to the office to help her find the girl's parents. When Komari notices they are both missing, she starts to panic. Sejima, on the other hand, had seen them leave and he decided to give them some space. Komari is not happy to leave them behind. But Sejima asks if she doesn't like to spend time with him alone, and she stops complaining. In the office, the officer asks Fuyutsuki to leave the girl with him, but the little girl keeps hanging on to her hand. Then Fuyutsuki decides to stay until her parents arrive. Himuro also stays with them, and he produces snowmen out of happiness. The girl catches them and starts playing with them. Once it is sorted out, Himuro calls Sejima but ignores the call. Komari asks why, and Sejima fires back, asking if she doesn't like to hang around with him. As Komari and Sejima did not answer their calls, Fuyutsuki and Himuro realized they were the lost people in the Nakomi theme park. Fuyutsuki says sorry for ruining it all for Himuro too. He says he is right about what happened and is happy to help the little girl. As they were talking, a little boy came running, calling his father that he was flying. The father was scared the boy might fall and asked the child to slow down. He was too late. The boy falls. Himuro runs to the child and helps him get up. They see the mascots of the theme park, Kiki and Nini, and both of them agree they look cute. They even reminded Fuyutsuki about George, the kitten. Then, after some time, they both wonder what they should do. Himuro remembers his brochure. He grabs it and tells Fuyutsuki about his research on the park. After reviewing all the facts, he says the cruise is an excellent thing to start with. It gives a chance to look at all the lazy cats. Both of them enjoy every bit of it. Then they set off for lunch. Even lunch items were decorated in a cat theme. Fuyutsuki enjoyed it all. Towards evening, they take another ride, and Fuyutsuki mentions that the park is full of happy and enjoying people. She says that seeing others happy makes her happy too. Himuro listens to every word, and he keeps falling for her all over again for her kind heart. Then, before they leave, Fuyutsuki asks if he likes to buy souvenirs. Himuro finds a light stick, while Fuyutsuki finds beautiful cat mugs. When she shows them to Himoru, he agrees to get them. He even suggests to use them at the office. Then Fuyutsuki says people will talk about them when they use matching mugs. Himoru thinks that is okay, but he doesn't speak that to Fuyutsuki. Instead, he believes it is time to confess. As soon as he starts to talk, Kamori appears out of nowhere with Sejima and says she finally found the lost kids. Himoru is not happy about what just happened. Kamori tells them to hurry up and finish off the shopping as the parade is about to start. The parade was beautiful and there were fireworks too. They enjoy every bit of it. Finally, Kamori takes a selfie in the background of fireworks. Looking at that photo, Sejima says that it all reminds him of Okinawa. Kamori also agrees. On the way back, Kamori asks Fuyutsuki about what they had done. Kamori says that she and Sejima did every ride available in the park. Fuyutsuki silences Katori as Himuro had fallen asleep on the train seat. She describes what they did in a low voice. When Fuyutsuki returns home, she goes to Nayemero, the cute toy she brought him. It was a stick with tiny plushes attached to it. She thanks Nayemero for looking after her house. After talking to Nayemero, she opens the box with the mug. She takes it out and happily thinks that both of them have similar cat mugs, and then she looks at George's kitten plate too. At the same time, Himuro also looks at the mug and the plate. Both of them think that they now own matching mugs and matching containers. Himuro, Fuyutsuki, and their colleagues of Sejima and Kamori are seated at a table as they discuss the chance to win 1 billion yen and what they would do if they won that money. Himuro asked Fuyutsuki what her thoughts were if she won, and she replied that she would save the money. Kamori's idea was to buy a luxury condo in the city center and use the leftover money to buy another one, rent it out, and live comfortably on the rent from the second one. Fuyutsuki had another idea and said they could also get Starbucks limited edition drinks daily. A quick calculation by the excited Kamori showed they could get the glass for 1,800 years. She added that Starbucks' little seasonal drinks appeared to look delicious all the time. For this Halloween, they had introduced a pumpkin black pepper frappuccino, which Kamori showed the others using her phone. Himuro quietly listened as Fuyutsuki said that she had been meaning to try out that particular flavor. Still, long lines near the Starbucks outlets close to her company made it nearly impossible for her to get it. She couldn't spend her entire lunch break just for that one beverage, so she had never been able to taste it since it was fully crowded at night. Himuro was very intrigued by how much Fuyutsuki seemed to want to try this seasonal flavor, so he decided to try it as well. Another day dawned, and Himuro had finished up a meeting with a client at another location. As he left the building, he spotted a Starbucks in the area, which was empty, to his surprise. He was pleased and ordered 4 pumpkin black pepper frappuccinos for himself, Fuyutsuki, Sejima, and Kamori. He added that he wouldn't need the ice packs with the drinks as he was a descendant of the Snow Woman's spirit. So there was no better person to keep the beverages nice and calm until he reached his office, no matter how long it took him. Himuro spotted Fuyutsuki as he entered his office and asked if she would take her lunch break. She replied yes, and that he had turned up at the perfect time. Fuyutsuki opened the mini fridge door to show Himuro 4 pumpkin black pepper frappuccinos that she had managed to buy since the Starbucks near their office happened to be less crowded that day. The shocked and embarrassed Himuro tried to hide the bag with the same beverages he had bought, but sharp-eyed Fuyutsuki spotted it and guessed that he had the same thought as her. She was happy they were on the same page, and their minds were in sync. Later in the day, Himuro, Fuyutsuki, Sejima, and Kamori enjoyed Starbucks pumpkin black pepper frappuccinos with their other 2 friends in the office, Katori and Tonashi. They decided to give their chief one of the 2 leftover drinks and wondered what to do about the remaining one. Sejima's attention was caught by a poster on the door announcing a Halloween cosplay event organized by the president of their company. Right at that moment, the president herself turned up, and Fuyutsuki offered the last drink to her. She happily accepted it, saying that she wanted to try it too, but that didn't mean she would go easy on them during the judging process for the event. The group discussed what grand prize they would receive from the cosplay contest, and the president revealed that she would be gifting 100,000 yen. The shocked but excited employees listened to the president raving about how she wouldn't mind giving such a grand amount for a prize because she adored festivals. It was funny that all 3 men were fired up and raring to go for the cosplay contest, more than the 3 girls, out of which only Kamori was enthusiastic. Katori and Otonashi separated themselves from their friend group, as they belonged to a different department, and the other 4 met up to discuss their costumes. Fuyutsuki commented that Katori would be a tough competitor as he used to be an artist when Sejima gave the idea of picking a classic character, such as a ghost or mummy. Himuro silently fantasized about Fuyutsuki dressed in either of the 2 costumes, and his vivid imagination made him happy as he was sure she would look amazing in anything. However, his hopes of seeing Fuyutsuki in a cute costume were dashed as she suggested a funny-looking pumpkin outfit that covered the face and body completely, and the other two agreed to go with it. Komori teased Himuro when she noticed his happy expression fading, but he assured her that he was also okay with the outfit choice. On her way home, Fuyutsuki offered to hunt for the costumes, and Himuro quickly decided to join her. He was secretly overjoyed that he got to spend more time with Fuyutsuki. The pair visited several stores, but the particular pumpkin costume they sought was sold out. Himuro felt angry that Fuyutsuki was upset over not getting the outfit she picked. In the end, Fuyutsuki decided to pick a way cuter, and Himuro blushed when he saw her. He dropped her off at the entrance to her apartment, and Fuyutsuki's attractive parting actions made him blush once again and activate his powers. The day of the Halloween event arrived, and the office was in full swing preparing for the party. The employees worked together to decorate their offices, and a caterer prepared a memorable feast. Fuyutsuki was stuck in a meeting with her clients and would be late to join the party, so the other three went off to get dressed until she arrived. They came across a sad Katori who was extremely upset that he had forgotten to bring the cosplay costumes he had been diligently working on. He mentioned it would take nearly an hour to return home and get them to the office and another hour to put on the outfits. Himuro, Sajima, and Komori tried to come up with alternate outfit suggestions to help Katori out, but most of them were turned down as they didn't fit the theme of Halloween. Komori came up with a witty idea of acting a scary scenario that was realistic, like an office worker who had not completed his tasks or someone who was turned down for a date, and Katori was super happy with an idea such as this. His joy was short-lived as the president turned up and said it still wouldn't fit the criteria with no ghosts or demons as a costume. Fuyutsuki, who finished her meeting just then and messaged Himuro that she would join them soon, gave a clever idea to use recycled photocopy paper to create an eco-friendly mummy costume for Katori and Otonashi. Himuro, Sajima, and Komori lent a hand to dress up Katori and Otonashi amidst much laughter and fun before getting ready with their costumes, matching vampire outfits in the medieval style. Himuro appeared before them, and Komori admired how he looked incredibly dashing in the same vampire outfit as theirs. The trio headed to the party area and observed the other participants, who were dressed in creative and fantastic cosplay outfits. Amongst them were Ghosts, Red Riding Hood, the president herself dressed as the Queen of Hearts, and their fellow friends, the mummies. Fuyutsuki turned up in time and changed into her costume while Himuro and Komori went to meet her. Fuyutsuki appeared with blood dripping from her mouth, and poor Himuro was so shocked and afraid for her, thinking she was bleeding. The girls said it was merely fake blood to add a more realistic effect, and Himuro made an excuse to escape the awkward situation. The awkwardness remained around Himuro and Fuyutsuki at the party, and a curious Sajima asked Komori if anything happened between the pair. A cheeky Komori answered, "Who knows," without revealing what she had witnessed before. It was time for the president to announce the results of the Halloween cosplay contest. And surprise, surprise, the group of 4 vampires, Himuro, Fuyutsuki, Sajima, and Komori, were placed second. To everyone's amazement, the first place went to none other than the recycled paper mummies, Katori and Otonashi. Once the prizes were handed over, the 6 friends gathered to discuss what to do with their money. Katori and Otonashi felt terrible for winning because their outfit idea was due to Fuyutsuki's quickness. So they decided to split half the winning amount with the other 4, and Komori immediately wants to splurge on a fancy meal. Himuro wandered alone into a dark office room and discovered Fuyutsuki there. They had both wanted to pack up their things to leave the party. However, Fuyutsuki plucked up her courage to ask Himuro to accompany her home without them changing out of their vampire costumes. She wanted to spend more time with Himuro and enjoy the Halloween festivities. The happy pair walked along the streets and spotted many people wearing the pumpkin outfit they had wanted to buy earlier. They giggled at the sight as soft snow fell, and Himuro wished a happy Halloween to end the happy day. Himuro was walking on the street as he racked his brains for an appropriate gift he wanted to give Fuyutsuki this Christmas. He stopped at a glass window that displayed lovely necklaces and earrings, and his gaze was especially caught by a pair of earrings shaped like snowflakes. He had already noticed that Fuyutsuki always wore earrings, so he quickly decided to buy the snowflake earrings that caught his fancy at first glance. He hoped that Fuyutsuki would like his sincere gift. Soon, winter arrived, and Himuro was waiting at the ice rink to meet Fuyutsuki to go skiing with her. Sajima and Komori had also tagged along, and the pair laughed at Himuro's cute reaction to seeing Fuyutsuki dressed up in ski clothing. A flashback to some time ago revealed an excited Komori showing Fuyutsuki her phone. She had won a prize to go skiing at a resort and wanted Fuyutsuki to join her. The hesitant Fuyutsuki was unsure if she would be a good companion for this kind of activity, as she shared that she didn't have much experience with skiing. A persistent Komori persuaded Fuyutsuki that it was a good reason to try skiing, so she could get a new venture from it and decide for herself whether she liked skiing. Himuro arrived in the office just then, and Komori wanted to know if he knew how to ski. When he replied that he could ski a little, Komori hit upon the idea of asking him to teach Fuyutsuki how to ski. Sajima turned up as well, and Komori declared that it would be great to go on a skiing trip together and have a Christmas party at night with all four of them. That's how they ended up at the ski resort, and Fuyutsuki was waiting patiently in her skis for Himuro. He came up next to her and said he wanted to check if the area was safe before they started. He'd asked Fuyutsuki to lift her feet one at a time so he could examine if her skis were secured. Himuro was super excited and blushed at the thought of getting to ski with his crush, another way of spending more time with her. Fuyutsuki interrupted his train of thought and apologized for troubling Himuro to teach her skiing, but he replied that he was good at the activity and was more than happy to help her. He started with basic instructions: swoosh to slide from side to side and shush to stop. A cautious and nervous Fuyutsuki watched admiringly as Himuro demonstrated the two movements quickly and gracefully. She set off with determination but fell on her butt and slid down the slope, creating a funny but cute scene for the watching Himuro, who found it highly endearing. Komori offered one of her ski poles to pull Fuyutsuki to her feet. She started giving more detailed instructions on how to ski, and the tips worked for Fuyutsuki as she grasped how to start skiing independently. After some time skiing with her friend, the delighted Komori suggested going to the top of the mountain and enjoying some delicious food at the lodge there. Himuro, Fuyutsuki, Sajima, and Komori made their way to the top of a ski lift, and as they were moving, they spotted small footprints on the snow below them. Komori teased them that it looked like her mother's footprints, and the other three assumed that her mother was a fox or a descendant of the same. But Komori laughed at them and said it was just a joke. While they went on foot again, Sajima was curious to know more about Himuro's parents. Himuro replied that both of them were regular employees and that he had a younger sister who had mentioned that she was going to work part-time at a ski resort. As the friends opened the lodge doors and stepped inside, a young girl with silver hair called out to him, just like Himuro's. Himuro was shocked and embarrassed at the extraordinary coincidence of meeting his sister at this ski resort. The girl introduced herself as Yukimin and said she did modeling, live streaming, and posted dance and makeup videos. Komori was eager to know what Yukimin's channel was, but the younger girl felt shy as her most viewed video was of her doing an eating challenge, which didn't fit the image she wanted to create. Despite her comments, Sajima and Komori were impressed by her number of subscribers, and Fuyutsuki added that she thought Yukimin was cute. Yukimin correctly guessed that this was Fuyutsuki and linked arms with her, even while her brother tried to chase her away. He was nervous about what she might blurt out to Fuyutsuki as he constantly talked about her to his sister. Yukimin took Fuyutsuki aside and asked if her brother gave them trouble in their workplace. Fuyutsuki replied that it was not the case and always cared for Fuyutsuki. Yukimin was joyful to hear that Himuro was not treated as an outcast due to his ancestry. Fuyutsuki realized that Yukimin's eyes were identical to Himuro's, and she thought that the eyes were pretty. Yukimin instantly liked Fuyutsuki very much and hugged her close, sending a shower of snow as an outraged Himuro protested and dragged her away from his crush. With a loud cheer of Merry Christmas, the party began, and the group of friends donned different hats and headbands to celebrate the season. The two girls had decided earlier to make takoyaki, and Fuyutsuki put herself in charge of cooking the food. She even whispered to Himuro that she would put an extra octopus into his share, causing him to blush again for the exceptional care she had for him. Komori proposed to make a toast first, after which the group enjoyed their takoyaki very much. The plates soon became empty and they ran out of drinks. Fuyutsuki offered to get more beverages for them, and Himuro joined her, secretly picking up the gift bag that contained his present for Fuyutsuki. The pair leisurely strolled along, talking about Fuyutsuki's cat, and they stopped in front of a beautifully lit Christmas tree. Fuyutsuki stared up at it in admiration, but Himuro adoringly stared at her face instead. He plucked up his courage and handed over the gift bag to Fuyutsuki. The girl took a peek and saw a soft blanket inside. She felt sorry that she didn't get him anything, but Himuro persisted. He always caused her trouble with his bouts of snow, and the blanket would keep her warm. His gesture touched Fuyutsuki, but she replied that she always felt warm when she was around Himuro, and therefore, she didn't feel cold at all. The pair expressed their sincere gratitude to each other as the snow fell gently around them. Meanwhile, Sajima and Komori watched out of a window, waiting for the two friends to return. Sajima wondered what took them so long, but Komori diverted his attention to the falling snow, which was beautiful to watch. As the four friends sat on the bus, taking them back home, Himuro thought about the day he had bought the snowflake earrings for Fuyutsuki. When he had stopped at the pedestrian crossing, waiting for the light to turn green so he could cross, he overheard a conversation between two women behind him. They argued that getting accessories they didn't like from someone who wasn't their partner was one of the worst possible gifts. Himuro broke into a sweat on hearing those words and rushed back to exchange the earrings for something more appropriate for Fuyutsuki. Hence, he got her a warm, soft blanket to protect her against the cold. The memory of this incident ran through Himuro's mind on the bus, and Fuyutsuki commented that the blanket was warm. Himuro looked at her and noticed she had used his gift to cover her knees. He apologized to Fuyutsuki about his little sister's fuss, but she assured him that it was no hassle at all. She liked seeing a new side to him, other than the personality she was used to seeing in their workplace. Himuro fell for her even more, and his abilities activated, turning the inside of the bus very cold and making Sajima grumble as usual. Himuro sent a message to his little sister saying, "Good job." The girl was so confused and disgusted that she left his message on read without replying. This could be because he had never used those expressions with her before. Welcome to the typical older brother-younger sister relationship. Himuro was feeling happy and content about having a great Christmas and hoped that he would get the chance to come back next year, just himself and Fuyutsuki.